All right, so it's a cold late afternoon here in the Wildcat Hills. Last night had a mountain lion come through, triggered one of the cams that I have hardwired to a computer since it's only about 300 feet away, so I can run an Ethernet connection, so no having to wait on a trail cam. You get instant gratification, so plus alerts you when one's coming through, at least at that location. And so I'm down in that ravine now doing a little tracking. Not difficult to do, even for someone of my meager, perhaps almost non-existent skills. I can pick up on this one. And this is a ravine that mountain lions have moved through pretty frequently. Here's one of my stationary trail cameras, so I'll check the card on that in a minute, but I'm pretty sure we've got some good action here, so head on down here a ways. Pretty distinctive, you're not going to miss it. This is, I believe, a young male that's been down in this area. Just kind of lay a yardstick down here, so we're at about 27 inches between the tracks here. This is pretty dry, powdery snow, so I'm not seeing any real great imprints here. There's a little wind too. Obviously someone who was skilled with tracking would be able to, but here not a lot of mystery what we had coming through. The distance between the tracks here is certainly not as wide as I've seen from some other cats, which again would be consistent that this is a somewhat smaller male, a juvenile. And it looks like he pretty much is going straight through. This is the low part of this ravine here that I've probably had 30 or 40 sightings, probably maybe 7 or 8 cats top, but this seems to be a popular area. Looks like he veered off a little bit. Oh, there we can get a little bit nicer imprint there, as well as this one here. Here's my fist for comparison. So I don't have the hugest hands, but and the distinctive roundish shape here, but pretty obvious. There's another nice imprint. Looks like he actually came through the side here rather than through the main section of this ravine like I usually see them. So fun. We haven't had as many snows the last couple of years, and you can obviously see where this brings out a whole nother dimension of mountain lions. One thing that always stands out to me is when I check a trail cam and find that a mountain lion has gone by, and so, you know, and I check them fairly frequently, so I have a time frame there, so, you know, looking for tracks. And granted, again, my tracking skills are certainly far from exceptional, but I think I could pick up, and I have picked up, some average quality prints, and they definitely move through without leaving a lot of trace. The late John Landre's book there, Ghosts on the Prairie, that ghost idea certainly resonates when you see how they move through these landscapes without leaving a trace. But when the snow falls, a lot of that's given up, and so you see that side of them. I probably won't get a chance to get out today, but of course this is a great opportunity if you're in an area where you think you've got some somewhat regular mountain lion activity and your snow persists. Get on out to those places that you suspect might be good areas, and look for tracks. in previous years, this has been really valuable to me in the times I've been able to get out. Those have led me to scrape sites and other good locations that not only are productive for cameras during the winter season, but I'll often now leave them there year-round. And you could have found those scrape sites on your own, or just, without the snow tracking, but probably not. A lot of them were off the beaten path, and so this is an extremely valuable opportunity to get out and do some tracking, and just tracking in general. It's something I wish I was better at, because it does just open up a whole nother aspect of connecting with wildlife and trying to reconnect some scenes, what might have happened, and behavior. And so I suppose that's one of the other liabilities of climate change, at least in those areas that are seeing fewer days of snow cover, is fewer opportunities to do that. So neat stuff. All right, so we're back up trail, down trail. That's how you see it. It's my little wildlife pond here. This cat in particular, at least I believe it is, has stopped here for a drink, but not this time. A little bit better imprint in some of the snow here. This is an area where a couple, tree things happen. You can kind of go up to the right there. You can take a little gully up, or you can proceed up to the left here a little bit. And it looks like this time took this route rather than up the hill here a little bit. So we'll pause it, head up trail a little bit. All right, we've got some nice imprints here. You can even see kind of some of the shape of those individual toes under here. There's a pretty dense little overhang of some cedar. So I think that's meant a little less blowing snow. You can kind of see size-wise. Yeah, it doesn't take much to screw up these tracks, especially if you're clumsy like me. See about the size here. Certainly not the biggest cat in the world. As opposed to coyote tracks, where if you've ever seen those, they're wandering off in every direction and just so curious, which is exactly how a lot of them behave in front of my cams too. Most of the time, in my limited experience, the mountain lions, they're pretty much straight linear path, at least in the places I've cammed and encountered them. Not a whole lot of wandering side to side, so they know where they're headed, at least in some of these cases. So let's pause it again and see what goes on down trail. All right, we're down trail a little bit. Still got a good solid track. Interesting that this, little edge to what is a periodic little spring-fed stream. Stream's probably too generous a word. Streamlet, whatever a tiny little trickle of water is. About 10 feet down in there, pretty heavily covered, not easy to move through. And usually, in my experience, the cats will be up kind of on the shoulder or little bench of this. Still very good cover overall in here, and a lot of deer activity, as you might guess. But we're only going to be down in the ravine where there's kind of clear sailing and relatively open spot. And this particular trail here is frequented by pretty much every species you can imagine down here. raccoons, possum. Not a lot of coyote in this particular area of the Wildcat Hills. In my experience, they tend to favor more open country. Plenty of mule deer and solitary moose now and then. So here's a spot where there is actually a scrape and a scat right about there. And it looks like might have stopped temporarily to take a sniff or picked up a sniff, but certainly didn't do anything with the scrape. And I'm pretty sure that this particular cat left that scrape. So that's kind of interesting. Got another cam there, so looks like I'm probably going to get good images. Good video, I should say. My cameras, you can't select both. And I always opt for video because they're just more engaging. They just tell you, they give you I think a much more complete picture, feeling, however you want to put it, for obvious reasons. And if you need them for photos, it's pretty easy to find some free software to take an MP4 and split it up for photos that you can use. So here's a little bit of this. I'm going to try to manage not to fall down this little embankment, which is usually my trick after a new slick snow. But here's some of that. Stays pretty unfrozen year-round. Coming out of the ground, it has to be pretty cold before all this will free up. But what we can see here, not getting a drink, so we'll pause it and move on down the trail a little bit. All right, well, we've still got some good track action. That's another scrape right in here, although I think it's just a bobcat. There was certainly bobcat scat on it, whether it was a bobcat that created it. It's a little hard to tell. And there's another one of my camera setups. So that's kind of interesting. Looks like it might have taken a look at that, so ought to be some pretty good footage there. These work out pretty well. Basically an ammo box where you can put a bigger battery. You can buy just kind of a no-name generic 12-volt battery to run these externally, although they have pretty decent battery life, even with rechargeables, which is what I use rather than lithiums. But this holds up pretty well. It's got a handle on there, you can carry it around. It's a little mounting post, it's kind of hard to see. I mount my cameras low. I think I really appreciate that view. Obviously a lot of trail cameras are hunting specific species where it might make sense to have a higher placement, but for what I'm after, and you get some other interesting things this way. You occasionally get some interesting birds as well as plenty of other species, but really gives you close to a cat's eye view. And I haven't detected any issues with motion detection. I get plenty of false triggers like every camera trapper does, but I haven't noticed any more at this level, unless of course you're at a part of the season where you've got a lot of grass coming up, and you might have to stomp a little bit of that down and do a little creative placement. But overall, I really like this angle, and we'll see what we get. So here's a little depression down in here. Looks like the cat went on down and up the other side, so that's where we'll go. All right, and this cat pretty much went all the way down this particular ravine. Here, a little bathroom stop. Not difficult to make that out either by the tracks or the urine there. No attempt to my knowledge, there's not any scrape here or an attempt to make one, so just like we all experience sometimes, right? It's just sometimes gotta go. Alright, this is where we're getting about to the head of this canyon, or this ravine I should say, not much of a canyon, and it's getting a little rougher in here, so I'm going to have to give it a pause. Alright, well, this looks like the end of the line, at least for me, for an hour. End of the lion, right? Things get pretty tight up in here, but there's a little drainage cuts up in here and goes up to the road, which I've suspected is one that's used pretty frequently for cats entering and exiting this particular ravine that I'm in, but this provides some good confirmation of that, and probably tomorrow should be able to check that out with the vehicle and see if there's something coming out the other side there. So tools like Google Earth and Gaia GPS are great for recording mountain lion tracks like I'm doing here, being able to keep a record of those over time, and great for camera placement and just to learn about these amazing animals. So great excuse to get out on a beautiful winter day and do a little cat tracking. Signing off.